Parent, this meeting is being recorded. Welcome to the UNC Asheville Parent to Parent webinar. My name is Sarah Nazianale, and I am one of the Associate Directors of Admission at UNC Asheville. I was looking through the registration for tonight's event and was so thrilled to see the names of so many of you that I recognize. It's been truly such a joy getting to know you and your student over the past year, so welcome tonight. We thought it was really important to host this event because we know that now more than ever, where your student decides to go to college is a family decision. Some of you have already made that decision, and some of you are still weighing all of your options. And we thought that it might be really good to have current parents of students, of UNC Asheville students, and a couple alums to talk you through that process and speak about the impact that that UNC Asheville decision has had on their family. So just before we get started tonight, a couple of logistics about the webinar. If you have questions to ask the panelists at any time, you can put those questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. Please don't put those in the chat so that we can kind of keep all of those questions corralled. We will try to answer as many questions as we can get to. You all also indicated some questions when you registered, so we will definitely try to honor as many of those questions as possible. And if you feel like your questions didn't get answered tonight, that is what our admission counselors and what I am here for. So please feel free to reach out to us in the coming week if you still leave with some questions after tonight. So to welcome you all tonight to the program and to start the program, I'd like to welcome UNC Asheville's Chancellor, Dr. Nancy Cable, to share just a few words with you. And we will now bring Chancellor Cable on the screen. One moment. There she goes.
Thanks, Sarah, and greetings, everybody. Thank you so much for taking some time to gather tonight during this very difficult and uncertain time for so many. But I congratulate you first and foremost on becoming a part of the UNC Asheville family community. And I know our current parents will also serve as a resource to you. Also, my congratulations to your children who have been admitted to UNC Asheville. Not an easy feat this year. We had a really strong applicant pool. So we're really proud to welcome you. And we are very glad tonight to be able to hear your questions, address any of your concerns to the best of our ability. Obviously, the situation with the virus continues to change moment by moment. But I'm thrilled to tell you that we are working closely with medical authorities, with the UNC system, with all of the other universities in the system, and even some of our private college colleagues as presidents to figure out a way to open in the fall. So I'm thrilled to announce that to you all first. We are working on various strategies, dates, times, when we would start, and so on. And so I'll be happy as this evening, as this hour goes along together, to answer as many of your questions as I can. I also want to thank the parents of our current students who are also a terrific resource along with our admission and financial aid staffers to answer your questions and address your concerns. It's also a time when if you want to follow up with me or with Sarah or anyone else on the webinar, we'll just be very happy to take your questions and calls as these days move along. So let me stop there and invite questions in whatever way Sarah wants to do that as she introduces other panelists. Welcome, congratulations, and I'm available to you in every way possible to answer your questions and concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Chancellor Cable. So next we will bring on Dean Jackie McHargue. She is the Dean of Students, and we thought it was really important for her to get in front of you all because she really does a fabulous job of taking care of our students while they're here all 4 years. So we wanted to bring her on and have her speak about our philosophy for caring for students during their 4 years at UNC Asheville. So welcome, Dean McHargue.
Thank you, Sarah. So as Sarah said, my name is Jackie McCarg. I'm in my 14th year here as Dean of Students, and I'm really excited to spend some time with you all this evening because our Division of Student Affairs really does work hard to create a culture of care for your student. Because we know as you sit in these moments right now on a good non-COVID day, you're concerned about how your student will be taken care of when they come here, and will they feel connected? What if they get sick? What if they don't like their roommate? All of those things that run through your head. You're entrusting your most prized possession, this human that you have loved and taken care of all these years, to someone else that can they possibly care for them even close to what you all have done. And we try, to be perfectly honest, we look at this as a balanced relationship where we are trying to help your student develop some autonomy, get settled into this semi-pseudo adulthood that they're entering into, but also that they did not get here alone, nor are they traveling this journey alone. And so one of the experiences you'll have with me is I'm one of the folks in the parents' Facebook page that's there trying to answer questions where your students aren't. They're not allowed on that page, so you can never worry about embarrassing them. You can ask anything you can think of, but we really do want to try to answer all your questions, make sure you know that folks like me and my team are here. I'm the point person if a student is really struggling, if the student's had some kind of crisis, if they've had an emergency. And so it is really important that you get to see my face to know there's a real human being that is behind the efforts to help coordinate that care and attention for your students so they can be successful when they're here.
Unmuted, the pitfalls of webinars. So at this time, I'd like to welcome all of our panelists on the screen. I think I have to ask you to start your videos, so I will do that right now. And I will ask our panelists to introduce themselves. We have a mixture of alumni here, and we've got some parents that have current students at UNC Asheville. So Copeland, you are the first parent on my screen. So if you could introduce yourself and tell us about your student at UNC Asheville.
Absolutely. Well, welcome everybody. My name's Copeland Rudolph. I'm a former child of a UNCA professor, so I feel very comfortable on the UNCA campus. I'm a parent of Bo, who is a junior at UNCA, and I'm also the parent of a senior in high school right now. So I really empathize with all those anxious feelings about what's next. And I'm also going to add that I am the employer of 3, soon to be 4 UNCA alumni. How many people out there are giving raises and hiring right now? I am, because I have some UNCA alumni that I'm not going to let go. And so I want to welcome you, and I'm excited to answer your questions.
Thank you, Copeland. Jeremy, you are next on my screen.
I grew up in Asheville, North Carolina, and graduated from UNC Asheville in 2003 with a double major in mass communication and Spanish. And after school, I went to law school at Chapel Hill, and now I'm a commercial real estate attorney and partner at a law firm in Greensboro, North Carolina called Crothers & Roth.
Thanks, Jeremy, for joining us. Thanks, Copeland.
Happy to be here.
Lisa and Jim, you are at the bottom of my screen, so if you want to introduce yourselves.
Sure. I'm Jim Brueggemann. My wife Lisa is also with us, and we have a daughter who is just graduating after a fabulous 4 years, and feels strongly about UNC Asheville, and really honored and pleased to be able to talk to prospective students and admitted students tonight, tell our story.
Wonderful. And Mark, you are last but not least on our screen.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mark Dan. I am a special litigation counsel with the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division, Education Opportunities Section, and a 1996 grad with political science and psychology, double major. And I'm happy to be here from Washington, D.C.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mark. So there were a lot of questions that you all had when you registered for this event, and I am going to do my best to try and get through some of these. I'd like to start just asking you all, the parents specifically, about what your students' first year experience was like, and any advice that you might have for parents that are trying to assist their first year student in that transition.
I'm happy to take that question. I'm Lisa Brueggemann. My husband just introduced himself. Our daughter, as he mentioned, is a senior and is now finished. She was in the economics department, the last place I thought she would land when she started at UNC Asheville. She's graduating from the honors program and will graduate summa cum laude, which we also didn't expect because she initially didn't get into the honors program. So I would say to parents, even when you think you know, and often, that's a question, you don't know necessarily. And there's a wonderful circuitous route sometimes for to get there. The day that our daughter started school, she called home and said, I've made the biggest mistake of my life. I don't belong here. There's nobody like me. I don't know what I'm going to do. And fortunately, we all took a deep breath and said, you may have to cast your net a little bit wider. You may have, one day is really not enough to make a decision. And she took that advice, took a deep breath, spent a couple weeks, decided to rush when she didn't have any interest whatsoever in being in a sorority, and just began to branch out and find people. And I would say within probably 2 or 3 weeks, she was a happy camper, and the next 4 years were the best years of her life. So she is a great example of, especially for anxious parents, my reaction was, oh gosh, we have to bring her home. Fortunately, I had enough sense not to say that out loud and give them a little time and space to find their way, because you just don't, it's especially in this environment, it's a difficult thing for them to do.
Thank you. Copeland, did you have anything to add?
Well, I'll add, my son took a gap semester at the beginning of his freshman year. So he was really anxious about being behind and not, and making friends mid-year, coming in January. And I asked him today what, tips he would give incoming students. And he really said that connecting with his professors was a big an important piece and a unique piece of UNC Asheville is they have such close relationships and access to their professors, and that was hugely helpful for him. He did do the study groups. I saw that some of you asked about, tutoring, study groups. Is it a good use of time? And he said absolutely, that he had such great access to support right away. He went to the math tutoring. He went to the writing center. He got some academic support where he was feeling a little anxiety starting academically. And then playing intramurals, picking something. He said, one of the things I love about UNC Asheville is my access to the arts. Even though I'm a political science major, that I had access to music and plays and so much to engage in, so that there was a lot for him I think he played ultimate frisbee, basketball, and intramural soccer. He's a jack of all trades, and there's a place for everyone at UNC Asheville. So those were his real tips. And I'll leave it there.
Thank you. So our next question is specifically about maybe the different job offers that might be that your students might be looking at. And I think that this is an opportunity to engage our alums, kind of what role did UNC Asheville and your education here play in your ability to find employment after graduating, and for Lisa and Jim, I believe that you all have maybe something to add to this as well. So if we could start with our alums to answer that question.
I'm happy to start off if that's okay. Well, first you have to recognize UNC Asheville is a liberal arts institution, which means that, yes, political science intersects with the arts. And their core principle is to be able to teach the students to critical thinking and communication, which makes itself applicable to all fields. So when you hit campus, you're going to automatically see those two themes intersect everywhere. And you need to recognize the era of the spending 50 years in one company and getting a gold watch at the end is long since passed. And we've gone from there to when I was a student, it was likely you were going to hit 10 jobs. Now it's likely that you're going to hit 5 careers, and those careers are going to cross-pollinate. Lawyers now have to learn computer science because of electronic discovery and the like. And the critical thinking skills and the ability to communicate applies itself to any field you go into. And UNCA also emphasizes undergraduate research. It founded the concept of undergraduate research along the lines of critical thinking. And it encourages cross field research. So when I did political science and psychology, I did an undergraduate research on mediation and applied it in the educational setting. And that leads to me to where I am now as an educational civil rights lawyer.
Thank you. Jeremy, did you want to share your experience after UNCA?
That's a hard answer to follow after Mark right there. I think he was spot on in terms of the benefits of a liberal arts education is critical thinking. And so maybe what I'd like to add is that the liberal arts education at UNC Asheville provided me with real world opportunities. And here's what I mean by that is I came to school wanting to be a journalist. And that's why I majored in mass communication. And I took news writing 201 with Dr. Kathy Mitchell. And in that class, we learned how to write a news story, timed in an hour. And if you made one grammatical error, you got deducted 1 grade. And I used the skills I learned in that and applied for an internship with the Times News, which was a newspaper in Hendersonville, that summer between my sophomore and junior year. Had that internship, great experience, realized that that's not what I want to do. And then I said, all right, well, you know what? I'd like to go ahead and study abroad in Granada, Spain, live about another culture. Took my humanities classes, took some PR classes and said, you know what? I want to save the world. How am I going to save the world? And so the first thing I did is I applied for an internship at school with a nonprofit in Washington, D.C. called the World Federalist Association that focused on genocide issues, human rights issues. And so luckily I got that internship, did that for a summer before my senior year, decided that wasn't right for me, and then went on to the next thing, which was law. And I took a mass media law course with Dr. Hatz, which is one of the most challenging courses I ever had at UNC Asheville. And it just really ignited the desire and interest in me in the area of law. And I decided I was going to apply to Chapel Hill for law school, but I was going to graduate in the winter rather than in the spring. So I had to find a job for a little bit. And as part of my degree, I had to do a news reporting class. And so I covered our career fair. And I just looked at who was going to be there in advance and passed out my resumes. And I got a call back for a firm in Atlanta that was moving up to Asheville that was called IntelliSound that did music and messaging. So when you're on hold, those messages you hear at a doctor's office or an elevator, we made those messages. And I got hired as an audio engineer and an IT manager. And I'd ever done any of those things before in my life? No. But what I learned at UNC Asheville gave me the skills to adapt in a situation that I didn't have much experience in. And, you know, those 4 things I think just epitomizes the liberal arts education at UNC Asheville. It gives you opportunities. It gives you an opportunity to foresee your interests and, you know, see if it's something you want to do or not.
Do our parents of current students want to talk a little bit about what opportunities their students have had with internships or job opportunities?
James, are you going to take that one or would you like?
Sure. So I would add that I think Mark did a really good job of highlighting how the liberal arts education brings critical thinking. I think Jeremy did a superb job of touching on the real world elements and the overseas study. So our daughter's been very, very lucky to get a job with a tech startup in Washington, D.C., and will begin her work in 2 weeks. And one of the parameters that the CEO set out in their initial informational interview was that he wanted to hire someone that he wouldn't mind being delayed in an airport for a full afternoon. And he said, if you can do that, you already meet what we're looking for to start the interview process. And I fully think that my daughter's international studies, which Asheville was very helpful in promoting and pushing through, and knowing all of her professors and having a relationship with each of them made her confident enough to take on the CEO of a tech startup. And she got the job, and she'll start in 3 weeks. So I credit Asheville with giving her that critical thinking that Mark's talking about, with the real world experience that Jeremy touched on, but also taking the world on in her own way and using Asheville to explore all kinds of opportunities and get a great job out of college. So it's a great success story for us, and it's fully attributable to her 4 years at Asheville.
And I mean, I would add, as well as the jobs that our students are going to have after college, that I think the jobs that are available while our students are in college, from work study to, I mean, I'd like to, one pleasant surprise that I've had as a parent, and my son spoke to this as well. I said, describe your friends. And he said, you know, my friends are grounded, they're hardworking, resilient people. And most of my son works outside of campus. He works at the Grove Park Inn, and all of his friends work. And I went to Davidson College. That's where I started my career. And people compare UNC Asheville as the public Davidson, but that was not true when I was at Davidson. Not all kids worked and had this kind of grit and hardworking mentality that I think is part of the culture at UNC Asheville that I've been pleasantly surprised. And now as an employer, if I could describe the alumni that work for me, I would say they are hardworking. They have huge empathy and connection to their community, local and beyond, and they're lifelong learners. They are open to learning daily. And I really appreciate that as an employer, and I attribute that to working and going to school at the same time. And I think UNCA supports that.
Copeland, I will second that and say that I think one of the significant reasons that our daughter was able to get such a tremendous job right out of college is that she has worked in the advancement office over the course of the last year. And she has had such incredible mentors in that office and such incredible support from the entire staff, trying to make sure that she had opportunities to learn different skills, whether it was being face-to-face with donors or doing behind-the-scenes planning. She really had an incredible opportunity, and it clearly has paid off, because the tech startup that she's going to be working for is actually someone that UNC Asheville uses for their social fundraising platforms called Give Campus. And I think they really value the kind of experience she was given when she worked at UNCA.
So there were a lot of logistics questions about what should my student bring to the dorm, the residence halls, or what is something that you all sent off with your student to the residence halls that came back and was not useful at all? So any tips, or Jackie, you might be able to answer this as well. Any tips on what to bring and what not to bring to the residence halls?
I will say, I feel like that old college lady now, when I'm like, their rooms are bigger than anything I ever lived in, but still their stuff multiplies when they bring it. So I think it's important for students, once they select their rooms and like start talking to their suite mates and roommates, that they need to really think about what is practical. A 65-inch television is probably not practical in all of our buildings. And so I think it's important that they are reasonable. I think, honestly, if your kid's asking for a new laptop, they're probably right. Our students do live off of their laptops, but if they're on the brink of those decisions, thinking about what their major might be is helpful, because some platforms work better for some of their classes. We get winter, but we apparently have not placed enough order for snow. And so I think students don't necessarily need as much clothes as they think they're going to need. The things I see that go back home with you unused or in the Goodwill bins, vacuums. They're not going to vacuum. If they vacuum, they can use a residence hall vacuum. They're going to need things to stay organized. And so even if your student has been a write it on their arm student, some positive reinforcement for looking at what might keep them more organized in college is going to be good, whether that be clothing. If they live on campus, they don't need quarters for laundry. Their laundry is included, not the doing of it, but the cost of it is included in their housing fees. So I think that really helps. I think holding some of their stuff hostage is okay as well, to get them to come back home later in the semester and not right out of the gate. I think students see that Labor Day weekend and they're like, I'm gonna come home. Try to get your student to stay and have them come back maybe during fall break to get more stuff. So I think that's what I would probably say about bringing things. And when you come to pick them up at the end of the academic year, breathe, because their stuff rubs together and makes more stuff. And so it never all fits back in really well. So be prepared to help them purge.
Thank you, Jackie. Chancellor Cable, most of the questions that we received for this, quite honestly, were about how the virus is going to impact fall, what that might look like. Parents are interested in different scenarios that we're considering and when we might know more. So didn't know if you were able to speak to at least what we know at this point and what we're considering for the fall.
Well, let me begin by saying that Western North Carolina, for the most part, has been spared the worst of the virus, relatively to certainly Mecklenburg and Raleigh and Wake County and so on. Our infection rate has been very low. We have lost some of our citizens, very few in Buncombe County, a greater number in Hendersonville County, which is just south of us. But generally that comes, we believe, because our health director in Buncombe County shut us down and started social distancing almost 2 weeks before the official emergency declarations and suggested federal guidelines were put forward. So let that tell you something about how much we prize health and well-being in our community as a group of citizens of all ages, including a retired population here. But let it also tell you that the university is deeply committed and sincerely serious about adopting principles should we be able to open in the fall, which it is our intention to do, that we will work closely with the hospital, closely with our area health education consortium, very closely with the county and the city, to ensure that we've adopted simply best practices, whether it's social distancing, whether it's classroom construction in a way that it allows us to have separation in our classrooms. We're just now taking a complete assessment of what classrooms are available and what can be used safely. We will also be testing every student who comes to campus. When we start, we will be providing quarantine facilities for them. So we'll be doing a number of the best practices that need to be done, and those will be in place before your son or daughter arrives here onto campus. We're also taking great measures to protect our workforce because we have some of our faculty who would be in situations where they either have underlying conditions or a few of our faculty would be older than 60 years old. So our instruction will be in person, but it's very possible that we could have some courses continuing to be taught online, although that would be a very small number. So our commitment is to ourselves as a community, and that includes your sons and daughters. If we open, we are likely to open earlier. Apologize for the dog barking, apologize. We're likely to open earlier, and that will be earlier in the month of August, so that we are likely to adjourn before Thanksgiving to mitigate the risk that the virus would return. We are just now in the process of deciding a number of details, and we hope to be very clear about this, and we have the support of the UNC system. We hope to be very clear about this by late May at the latest. And I'm happy to answer any questions, Sarah, that anyone has.
Thank you for that. I think that the Chancellor Cable, people have questions about maybe how that might look in the residence halls. Can you speak to that? You spoke a little bit about what it would look like in the classroom. How about the residence halls for some?
Yeah, let's deal with that one first. We've just gotten a formal opinion from the state health director in the state of North Carolina that for all institutions, should they choose, they will be able to offer both double rooms with 2 students per room and singles for folks. The sharing, we do not have any bathroom setups that, as Jackie can confirm, are large sort of many person bathrooms. All of ours are actually remodeled or improved to allow for a smaller number of 2 to 4 students at the most. Those will also be approved. So we are not worried about our residence hall arrangements. We'll be offering more singles for students that would choose and opt that this time. I think our next stages of planning will also focus on dining opportunities. We have a large dining hall that can provide some social distancing, but we'll keep some of our retail all around campus options for clean food, organic, certain different types of ethnic food and so on. As walk-ups, the student can come and get those. So all that is to be vetted. And I think the final and one of the toughest questions for us is what's going to happen with all of our sports and athletes. And at this point, the NCAA is starting to give colleges and universities really good, clear advice about training, practicing, social distancing, play times, in games, travel to games, and all those sorts of things. And again, whatever emerges as first grade, top practice, best practice in the health and safety of our students will be exactly what we do, or we wouldn't open up.
Thank you for clarifying that. I know that that probably puts many people at ease. The next question that we have is regarding, let's see, what support systems were helpful to your student as they transition to college, and what is the academic support like? So maybe some of our parents can talk about the relationships that their students have built with faculty and what they've used to support them academically.
Sarah, I'll be right back.
I think I mentioned the tutoring and small study groups my son really took advantage of. He also chose to do a summer class, which was a study abroad 3 weeks. And that experience, he was actually the only male, except for his male faculty member. And then I think there were 10 females. So it was, he got very close with Professor Patrick Balls. And that's been great for him. He has a really close relationship with the faculty from his freshman seminar to his current junior faculty. So I think utilizing office hours, I really pushed him to go to office hours and just introduce yourself and use the writing center, use the math tutors. Jim and Lisa, what do you have?
Yeah, I would agree with you, Copeland. I think it's wise to push your child to use all the resources that are there and not to stay in their dorm room, because it's easy in this lifestyle that they have where they're on their phones or they're on their iPads to kind of not go out. And I think Asheville has really pushed hard to create an environment where all of the faculty that my daughter has had have been open, and she has established relationships, and those have really, really been instrumental in her learning. I would also add that the staff there has been really wonderful about letting folks know that these things have already been paid for. These resources for tutoring and the different support networks that are available are already paid for. So now it's a matter of using them instead of giving up. And so my daughter used all those, and I think that really contributed to her experience there. The smallness of Asheville, if you're not taking advantage of it, you're missing a huge opportunity. And those small classes and that one-to-one relationship with that professor has really been instrumental for my daughter to be successful.
Would any of the alums like to chime in and maybe mention some of the support systems that were helpful to them during their time at UNC Asheville?
Well, the campus is small, and the first support system are your peers and your friends, and it's an intimate campus. It's remained small, and students will see each other throughout the campus because it's not a massive place. It's got this intimacy level. And the second support system are the professors. And when we're talking about professors, we're talking about professors who have reached their terminal degrees. You don't have teaching assistants handling the freshman lectures. You've got the PhDs, the professors who have reached their terminal pivotal field, and they're going to be the same professors who are going to be encouraging students on one-on-one very early in their academic career to come up with ideas for research. And you're going to get small classes. So I echo that the students should not only go to the professors for their individual courses, but their professors who are assigned as their mentors and their career choice counselors, because you're going to find those professors across campus all day long. And they will be the ones who will help guide your professional career, help guide your research, and your independent research as well, where you're not going to have a class, you're going to have that one-on-one relationship with the professors.
I would also add that the staff, in addition to the professors, the staff has been really great as with our daughter in giving her guidance. This is someone that did not come into UNC Asheville as an economics major. That was probably not even remotely in her head at the time. And through the guidance that she got, through the exploration she was able to have, taking a variety of different classes, sort of focused in on an entire department of professors that she just found to be incredibly compelling, incredibly caring and involved. And I think that is ultimately what led to her being an economics major. And I would encourage, especially if you have students who think they are going to major in a particular area or simply don't know yet, to really use the resources of the counselors and the advisors that they have there to help explore that, because that's what the liberal arts really is about, to be able to take the time to do that. You don't come in as, you know, an engineering major per se, taking only engineering classes, but the students can use all the guidance that the university offers to kind of steer them in the right direction.
Yeah, I'll just add one thing to that is I can't remember one time during the 4.5 years that I was there that I ever went to a professor's office and he or she was not available to talk to me. And so, you know, that was very reassuring to know that if I was in a challenging class or I was writing a paper and had questions, I could stop by and they're going to be there. And if they can't talk at that moment, they're going to say, Jeremy, come back later today at 2 o'clock. When I was at Chapel Hill, great school, it was very, very difficult to get an in-face meeting with one of your professors, just because the sheer number of students that they had in that class. So in my opinion, the small class size is one of the best things about UNC Asheville. Professors are going to know your children's names. They're going to challenge your student, and they're going to hold your child accountable. So if they're going to skip class, make sure they don't walk across campus and run into the professor, because they're going to say, Jeremy, where were you? Why were you not in class this morning? So just from personal experience.
That's a good tip, Jeremy. If there are any students listening in, I hope they heard that. Jackie, we have some questions about orientation. And I'll actually take this opportunity to plug that we actually are having a Q&A specifically on orientation tomorrow with our orientation office. But if you don't have the time to come to that, we will try to answer some of those questions. Because of COVID-19, orientation has been pushed online. It's been, and they're working on making that a wonderful experience for our students online. Can you talk about what that might look like for our students, and then also what it will look like for parents, because typically parents come on campus. So what is the parent track for online orientation?
Absolutely. And if you
Whoops.
I swear I pressed that button. Sorry about that. If you notice my little shifting, I was actually trying to answer some of those questions because I wasn't sure if we'd get to it. We are really worried about how students will develop relationships with each other. So the online tool we're going to use is actually designed to place them into they would have orientation groups, and they're still going to have orientation groups. And so they will be in smaller groups and work with our orientation leaders very much in that same format like they would have if they were physically here. We will have synchronous and asynchronous sessions for students as well during their orientation sessions. You all as parents will have your own orientation still. And so Sarah Smith, our Director of Transition and Parent Programs, and I and her team are working on what that's going to look like for parents. For parents, we're probably going to have really different flowing times because we know that your days may look a lot different than your students. And so we didn't want to put any unnecessary pressure on you all as parents to, if you're still working, to try to work around your work day. We want to do that for you. Then in July, what we wouldn't normally have is anything more than email contact maybe with your students. Not this summer. This summer, we're going to have drop-in sessions that are going to be open throughout the calendar. Some will just be social for your students. Some will just be social for you all as parents. Some will just be various members of our teams just available for question and answers. And then some will be repeats of those other sessions that we already offered, just in case you need to hear it again as a parent, or if your student needs to hear it again as a student. We want to give as much opportunity for FaceTime with all of our folks up here with you and your student as possible, because we don't get to do the tangible face-to-face, and so we really want to take the time to make sure you're developing and your students developing relationships with us as much as they are with their fellow first-year students. So your student's email is going to be the most vital thing they need to pay attention to, because that's where all this information will be deposited. And if your student is not a really good email person, poke them, because this is a great opportunity for them to learn that skill set now, so they are set and ready this summer and set and ready for the fall.
Thank you, Jackie. We have questions about meal plans and what your students found most beneficial for them as far as meal plans go, and whether they found that having a car on campus was a good idea or a bad idea or worked out for them. So parents, do you mind answering those questions from the perspective of your students' experience?
I'll take that one. It absolutely is not necessary for your child to have a car on campus. There is tremendous public transportation, both provided by the college around campus and to go to downtown Asheville if they want to, head downtown for a restaurant or some music or things like that. It's a small community, it's a small campus, and that's the beauty of it. I don't think there's any need for it. Now, there may be a want for it, but there's really not, they're not going to be driving around campus unless they're living off campus or unless they're driving into Asheville. It's just a small place and parking is tight. So probably they're going to be, if they do bring their car, parked a good ways away. Our daughter didn't bring a car to campus until her junior year. And that was more to get around for job reasons and things like that.
I would agree on the car, not necessary. I know on the Facebook page, the parent page, there are always concerns about what if my child needs to get to CVS? And first of all, CVS is in walking distance, but there's great transportation from campus for all those general needs. And as far as meal plans, I mean, I think it's nice. Even when my son, his second year, he was in one of the woods, which had a kitchen, which was a very nice transition where they cooked some of their meals, but he still had a meal plan. And I think that was important. So he's really enjoyed the meals. I don't know if there was another specific there, Sarah.
That was great. Jackie, can you maybe speak about how freshmen are welcomed to campus and what that maybe the first weekend is like? We have a question about what that welcome looks like, even maybe move-in day and parents weekend, kind of talk about how parents can be involved in that.
Honestly, we're still figuring what some of that will look like because we don't know necessarily what all the social distancing stuff may encompass. We usually have moving crews that are available to help you and your student move in. If that's not possible, what we're probably going to do is have some kind of scheduling format so you all are not there aren't too many of y'all all moving in at the same time, since you might have family members with you in addition to just your student. A lot of our students don't move in alone. A lot of y'all as parents come and help, and grandparents, aunts and uncles, it's kind of like pretty cool. So that component, we're not fully sure what it'll look like yet, but RAs will be there. There will be floor meetings so they can all get to know each other. We normally have some kind of a campus opening celebration. Historically, it's called Rocky Palooza, which is that first weekend right after your students move in, and it's a large barbecue kind of thing with games, and lots of student orgs are out there to get to know your student. We have a student organization fair that happens that first week. We have lots of community building activities that happen that first week. We also have a lot of things that we think they need to know. So we create these really fun activities where we drop knowledge really on them and they may not realize it. Because we also want them to learn, we'll provide some of this in the summer, but we want them to really start thinking about what it means to be an engaged and responsible campus citizen. That includes alcohol and drugs, that includes sexual responsibility, that includes part of that critical thinking. We're in an election year, and so we want to make sure students understand how they can have different opinions and not engage in behavior towards each other, that there's ways they can agree and disagree and still maintain those relationships. We will help them connect with campus resources. So a lot of our orientation activities roll into fall as well with that. We also have a really cool program called Wander to Ponder. It runs all through fall and spring semester. It's normally twice a week, always at the lunchtime time. And it is geared towards lots of different things: self-care, study skills, personality typing. Anything you can think of probably occurs somewhere in those 30 weeks. And it occurs more than once, but what it also is designed to do, that your student will know at least twice a week during that time, that room in Ponder Hall will always have an event happening. So what we have found is if a student's feeling a little disconnected, they can float to that room, and we'll always have folks there that can greet them, talk to them. Sometimes the groups are larger, sometimes smaller. So we're going to see what that looks like from a social distancing perspective. but we are really gearing all of those activities to help them get settled in who they are and how they're going to tackle the semester, but also knowing that they've just come off of a whole lot of months of lots of virtual engagement, and we actually have to reintroduce them to what that physical engagement is going to look like. Some folks are going to be thirsting for it, and others are going to have to readjust. And so we are prepared for that as well.
Sarah, can I speak on this a little bit? I was a transplant from New York, so I literally got dropped off by my mom. Actually, no, I rode in on a bus, met my mom there, and then got dropped off. So it's a culture shock. I come in from New York, and there I am in North Carolina. They talk a little bit different down there. And so you're talking about a stranger in a strange land, but the intimacy of the students, they envelop you. The students are the orientation leaders. Students, she just mentioned resident assistants. By the time I was a sophomore and junior, I was an orientation leader. I was a resident assistant. Students take care of themselves generationally across campus. I'd only intended to stay for 2 years. I was going to transfer to Chapel Hill. He's right. There's a difference there. And so as soon as I got there, I fell in love with not only the campus and the university, but also the city itself. So your students will enter campus nervous. It's natural. It's a transition in life. They're coming into a place that's foreign to them. But the campus, the other students, the faculty, the staff, all of them will be there to support your children.
Thank you, Mark. So we are running low on time, and we've got a lot of very specific questions, and I will do my best to try and reach back out to folks and maybe put out an FAQ from this event so that people can get the really specific information that they're asking. Because there are a lot of really great questions in here that if I had a phone call with you, I could answer very quickly for you, specifically regarding financial aid, UNCA email, health insurance, all of these kinds of questions. I would love to answer for you. But in order to kind of maximize the perspective of our panelists, before we sign off, I just wanted to go around and ask everyone if they could give one piece of advice to the parents of an incoming first-year student. What would it be? And I'm putting you on the spot because I didn't tell you that I was going to do this. But if you could give just one piece of advice for the folks listening in, what would that be?
I'll be glad to take that one first. Because we have a son who is at another school as a freshman, and so I have kind of both ends of the spectrum to see. And one of the things that amaze me on a regular basis, if I am brave enough to go to the Facebook page for the parents and things like that, is how much parents want to do for their student. They've got to get them into the right class. They've got to get them the perfect comforter that matches the curtains. They've got to get them this and this and this, and they've got to fix everything for them. And I would say to parents out there, I know it's hard. I've been there twice, but just let them do it. That's part of the process. They're going to be surrounded by staff and faculty at UNC Asheville that has nothing but their best interest at heart. They've got resources all over the place, and it's their time to find those resources. Don't try to do it all for them.
That's such great advice, Lisa. And, I would add on that our job at this point is to be a non-anxious presence. And especially in the time we're going through, they need us to take a deep breath and to be non-anxious. And I think that is my best parenting advice. It's going to be okay. And it is important for them to work through, and part of that developmental process for them growing up and leaving. And that I remember in my parent orientation from UNC Asheville, being told about parents calling the school. I mean, my parents never, they wouldn't, right? We would call home on Sundays, and whatever problem we had on Wednesday was already gone by Sunday. And these days, our kids can text us the minute anything is wrong. And if they've developed that habit of us coming in and fixing it and text, you know, so for me, it was taking a deep breath, being non-anxious, and letting them work things out. And they always surprise us with how well, I mean, I've been pleased with how my son has grown up and had support doing it.
I think that's great advice from both Copeland and Lisa. I would add that if you can find a way without telling them that they have to do it, if you can just suggest to them to get involved, and there are so many clubs, so many professors, so many activities, speakers. If they stay in their room, they're missing 90% of what Asheville has to offer. And so getting involved in different clubs, all these things, if they can find the way to do that when they have a choice and it's easier not to do it, they will get so much more out of their experience. You can't make them do it. You can't lead them there. But you can advise them saying, hey, you'll have a better experience if you go to that panelist and listen to that speaker that's coming onto campus. Those events were great touchdowns for my daughter, and she made herself do it. And getting out of her room was critical to making Asheville a better place. So I can't make my kids do stuff when I'm not there, but it's they'll take my suggestions.
Sarah, might I?
I'm sorry?
I'm asking if you're okay, Sarah National, if I may weigh in on this question.
Of course.
You know, I was recently asked by somebody, what's the business of the university? And my answer after a lot of long, hard thought is, we are about the business of human potential. And we are really good because of our special mission and our size and scale, as the stories have revealed tonight. We're really good at taking every single individual in our student body right where they are and helping them to go on a path that discovers their unique human potential. And so we're not spoon feeding students education or course material or even the experience in the residence halls. What we are doing is inviting them and empowering them to control and set their own destiny going forward. And some have a long path at that, some get it really quickly. But what's so magical about UNC Asheville and why the place is so distinctive in my view in higher education is because we do that empowering toward their own human potential in such a personalized and supportive way without giving up high expectations. And I'm very proud of all the people at the university who play a part in that role.
Well, I think that sums it up really, really well. So thank you for adding that in, Chancellor Cable. I just want to reiterate that we have programming to answer specific questions about orientation. We've got things coming up on health and counseling. We have the Career Center that we'll have on. It's a whole series called Q&A with UNCA. So if you have really specific questions for a department, your student has that schedule and they've got those emails in their inbox. So you can ask your student. Many of those students have already registered for this series. It's been ongoing. If your student recently watched one of the housing Q&A with UNCA's, there were over 100 students looking at that Q&A. We also we're recording all of these and we're putting them up on our virtual experiences website. So if you couldn't catch the housing session or you can't catch the orientation session tomorrow, we're recording them and putting them up on the admissions website at unca.edu. In addition to that, I know that there were a lot of COVID questions, a lot of coronavirus questions. One of those upcoming Q&A with UNCA's is exclusively with the senior administration of our university, and that's happening on May 20th. So May 20th is a Wednesday, and you can also sign up for that in the Q&A with UNCA registration. So if you have more specific COVID questions, please register for that event, and hopefully our senior administration can help address that specifically. And hopefully by, in a few weeks, mid to late May, we'll have some more answers for you there. But that is all that we have tonight. Thank you so much to all the panelists. Thank you to Chancellor Cable for stopping in. As I said at the beginning, we in the Office of Admission and Financial Aid are available throughout, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. I've given my personal cell phone number out to many of you on this webinar. We're working from home, but we are all still working. We're happy to answer all of your questions. Congratulations to your student and to you. We have loved getting to know you, and we can't wait to get to know you even more over the next 4 years. So thank you so much for tuning in, and let us know if you need us. We're here for you. Thank you. Have a great night.
Everybody.
Thanks, Sue.